Hi, this is Rich Sanders with the Southern Health Lawyers Weekly Health Law News Nugget for March 27th, 2018. Well, President Trump and the Congress managed to narrowly avoid yet another government shutdown last week by signing into effect on Friday, March 23rd, the federal budget for the federal fiscal year that will carry full government operations through until March 30th. As has happened so frequently over the last few years, Congress and the president do this dance where various items are negotiated, and at some point, actually last week, the president threatened to veto the spending bill if it didn't include certain elements of policy related to immigration. Having said that, though, everybody ended up getting on the same page, and the bill was signed and has some pretty important implications for the healthcare industry. Most important, and this is a theme throughout many of the recent news nuggets that you've watched, is that opioid treatment and dealing with the opioid epidemic is an important policy initiative for this administration. This budget for federal fiscal year 18 includes $4 billion specifically earmarked for opioid treatment, prevention, and law enforcement. $1 billion goes to the states and Indian tribes for developing initiatives at the local level to deal with the opioid epidemic, because it does have different effects as it's tearing up communities around the United States. An additional $1 billion is going to the Department of Justice, about half in the form of increased funding for the Drug Enforcement Task Force that we've mentioned in previous news nuggets, and another half going to the DOJ for things like the development of drug courts or opioid prevention initiatives that go through that particular federal agency. Significantly, no additional funding related to the opioid epidemic was allocated to CMS for Medicare or Medicaid enrollees. But having said that, Medicare or CMS's part of the federal budget ended up coming through just fine. That was taken care of, CHIP was taken care of, and ultimately provider compensation under the federal government's budget for FY18 is in great shape. Rodney Frelinghuysen, the representative for New Jersey, who's the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, said in his summary of the bill after the president signed it that this is the largest increase in funding for the Department of Veterans Affairs in that department's history, and that furthermore it includes increased funding specifically for veterans who are dealing with the opioid epidemic. He also mentioned, by the way, that the biggest allocation to the budget was through the Department of Defense for the continued global war on terror, and as a result, defense stocks were up on Wall Street last week. Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and other defense industry stalwarts all had significant increases in their stocks on Monday when the market opened. And we'll see, I think, continued growth in that sector of the economy as we continue to see growth in the healthcare sector as well. The Department of Veterans Affairs got its increase. CMS is protected for the remainder of this federal fiscal year, and healthcare was largely treated well in this final version of the federal budget for the coming fiscal year. That's all for this week. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to talking with you again next week in the Health Law News Nugget brought to you by Southern Health Lawyers. I'm Rich Sanders. Have a great week.